Chapter 11, Final Assembly.
The materials used in this section will include a garden hose, 3 male hose repair pieces, 3 female hose repair pieces, some 1/2 inch inner diameter clear vinyl tubing, about 3 feet of aquarium pump tubing and a complementary air stone, an aquarium pump, and a submersible pump. We'll be using a 1/6 horsepower, a 5-gallon food grade bucket, a 1-quart container, a 1/2 inch inner diameter rubber grommet, 4 small metal screws, and a small wood screw, about 12 hose washers, a router. We use the Linksys WRT54GL router, and we'll be using Garrett juice in our fertigation mix. The tools used in this section will be a screwdriver and a hand drill with a 5/8 inch bit. We'll also need some scissors.
Since we were just filming the installation and weren't actually going to be the operators of this particular platform, we left the planting to Gabi, the farm director at Factory Farm. She understood square foot planting and companion planting, and understood why we were using a diamond grid for planting, since roots grow out in a circular pattern and not square. So one can get about 20% more planting out of the space. This is what one's planting space might look like, using string or twine and wooden rods or bamboo to lay out the grid pattern, using the reference graphic online. Since the user will be accessing the bed from the outer edges, plants should be planted in order of mature height, with the tallest plants near the worm bin and the shortest near the edge of the bed. Otherwise, just follow the planting instructions per square foot on the packet or wherever good planting instructions are given. Of course, we recommend and only plant non-genetically modified organic. We try to stay with all heirlooms, and the more native a seed you can get, the better, especially when pursuing Horto domi as a biodynamic experimentation platform. After an initial planting is a great time to place the dome on top of the bed. Make sure to face it in the correct direction, with the irrigation point in the shield pointing toward the primary bed panel. Since we traveled with this manufactured control stand from Texas to Missouri, I decided I would wait until we put it in place before I put the irrigation solenoid assembly in the irrigation box. After making sure all those connections are sound, either glued or hose washered, depending, and the swivel of the main splitter is sticking out of the porthole, connect all the appropriate irrigation hoses between the control stand and the bed. The dome sprinkler irrigation hose connects to the top of the fertigation mixing vessel. A short leader hose connects the earthworm bin irrigation fixture to the top center of the bed wall, to the earthworm irrigation solenoid sticking out of the left side of the irrigation box. You will also need to make an incredibly short hose that stretches from the earthworm bin's lid drip line connection to the fixture mounted just across from it on the bed wall. I believe ours was just over 2 feet, but I would measure to fit. Next, connect the 1/2 inch clear vinyl tubing to the 1/2 inch brass barb on the bed wall, and then run it through the irrigation box, entering and exiting the ends, running under as opposed to over solenoids and irrigation pipes, because the tea will be draining down the tube with the use of gravity, so it's important to try to keep it as close to a gentle downward slope from the bin to the container as possible. After exiting the opposite side of the irrigation box, run the tubing into the small port drilled in the side of the fertilizer cabinet. Now that everything related to connecting with the solenoids is final, I screw the sheet of metal collar into place. Now Sam installs the sensors. Sam is taking advantage of the fact that we hadn't actually planted in this particular bed. Had you actually already planted in your bed, you wouldn't want to step in the bed. I wouldn't recommend stepping in the bed very often, if ever. When installing the sensors, the user can enter the bed from any side, but for the sake of the presentation, Sam is going to install the sensors from the center. In this deployment, there will be 2 temperature sensors, one monitoring the temperature inside the growing space and one measuring the temperature inside the worm bin, and 5 moisture probes, otherwise known as conductivity sensors. One will go in the worm bin, while Sam places 4 of them evenly around the grow bed. These 4 in the grow bed will be able to return a better average of the actual bed moisture conditions, allowing for better bed management. Next, Sam installs the router in the router box. This will be our earthworm tea reclamation container. We will be drilling a 5/8 inch hole near the bottom of this 1-quart container. Make sure to use tools with power if they are in fact power tools. After making a 5/8 inch hole near the bottom of the 1 quart container, place a grommet with an inner diameter of 1/2 inch snugly into place along the rim of the hole. Now I'll be running our 1/2 inch T reclamation tubing, which should be found inside the fertilizer cabinet, into the 1/2 inch grommet on this container. This procedure is made simpler with a bit of natural lubricant. However, none was readily available at the time of filming, so I made do without. Once the hose is inserted, replace the hose and container inside the cabinet. Now I'm going to install a small aquarium pump inside the fertilizer cabinet. This pump is going to aerate my fertilizing solution, allowing microorganisms to thrive before they are diluted and injected over the bed. You only need a short wood screw and a screwdriver for this step. Place the 5-gallon bucket inside the cabinet, making sure not to place it on top of the clear tubing. The clear tubing actually wraps around the bucket nicely. Place your fertilizer injection pump into the bucket. We're using a 1/6 horsepower submersible pump, which is obviously overkill, but we're just working with what's readily available to us, and we'll just have to assume reliability. Attach a short leader hose, less than 4 feet in length, to the top of the pump. Then connect the other end to the inline check end of the upper mixing vessel. All of these lengths of garden hose are best made to length on site, cutting from a larger hose, and using end replacement pieces to make hoses of the appropriate length. All you need are scissors to cut the hose and a screwdriver to work with the hose replacement pieces. If your hoses aren't the appropriate length, resulting in an excess, bending, and crimping, you may find the use of anti-crimping adapters necessary.
You can mix your fertilizer solution whenever you're ready. If your worm bin has been operational and you have worm tea in the collection container, carefully lift it, making sure not to let the tea run back down the hose as you do, and pour it into the bucket. Next, we add a couple gallons of clean, chemical-free water. There are an ever-increasing number of organic liquid fertilizers on the market. Being from Texas, we opted for Texas's own Howard Garrett's Garrett Juice. The recipe is available for free online. As with most common effective organic liquid fertilizers, it's a blend of compost tea, liquid molasses, apple cider vinegar, liquid seaweed, and some fish emulsion. Add the appropriate amount of liquid fertilizer to the bucket. Then turn the aquarium pump on, placing the air stone in the bottom of the bucket. Use this solution over the next 5 to 10 days, injecting a little over a quart into the mixing vessel immediately before watering. Don't try to keep a fertilizer solution batch going too much longer than that, though. If you ever neglect to use a batch of liquid fertilizer before it begins to smell poorly, make sure you throw it out, and do not spray it over the plants. For a great book dealing with soil life, I recommend Teaming with Microbes by Jeff Lowenfels and Wayne Lewis. Soil cultures of bacteria, fungi, archaea, algae, earthworms, and more foster plants' ideal growing conditions. Understanding what these organisms do and what they need to do it well is a big step in establishing ideal growing conditions in your bed. Thank you for watching this DIY Horto domi manufacture and assembly video. Now it's your turn to make the open source upgrades and/or modifications this platform needs to make it as effective as possible.